Hope everyone's having a good day. Excellent. I like that. Hi, Grant. I see that your hand is raised. Unfortunately, I'm unable to answer your question at this time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we'll get started. So thank you, everyone, for your participation on the EMAC for the I-5 and I-205 toll project. We deeply appreciate your time and commitment to this process, and it is great to be here in our meeting again. So we have an action-packed schedule. We are going to adopt the I-205 and I-5 toll projects equity framework for equity and mobility, and we're going to adopt the charter. We're going to discuss the findings from the I-205 toll project engagement and assess the results. We're going to work in breakout groups today to discuss the tools that the project team used to evaluate how we reach our audiences and engage different communities in project planning. That's the process equity. And each of the breakout groups will be discussing the same question. So today, listen and learn through reflection and discussion, and then share your insights. This is really important. So when it comes to technical help, Brett is the person to go to. Please note his phone number and his email, just in case you need it later. We'll be recording the entire meeting, and what you say is part of the public record. The recording will be made available to the public for review next week. To find more information about the project, go to OregonTolling.org. Community members, you are welcome to email your public comments to us at oregontolling@odot.state.or.us. So at approximately 4:40 p.m. this afternoon, we'll split into breakout groups. Committee members will join their assigned group via an individual link they received from our Zoom host, Brett. Webinar attendees are welcome to join any group to observe the discussions. Breakout groups will not be shown on the YouTube live stream, but they will be recorded. And we will reconvene back here at this link at 5:25 to be able to debrief. So as we do, I invite you to center yourself in this work. So I invite you to close your eyes or gaze softly downward. Feel the chair under your legs. Breathe in slowly through your nose and hold. Then breathe out your mouth. Feel your hands on your lap. Breathe in through your nose slowly and hold. And then breathe out your mouth. Feel your feet firmly on the ground. Breathe in through your nose and hold. And breathe out your mouth. Gently open your eyes. We're ready to get started. The purpose of my land acknowledgement is to center the traditional native inhabitants of the land upon which we live. I want to respectfully acknowledge the Chinook, the Clackamas, the Clatskanie, the Kalapuya, the Multnomah, the Molalla, the Tillamook, and the Siletz people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. I pay my personal respects to their elders, both past and present. So, our action-packed agenda today, always starting with the welcome, we'll move into public comment, we'll do our committee business, our charter and framework work, then we'll hear about the I-205 tool project engagement plan and the outcomes, take a 5-minute break, and then go into our 3 breakout groups. Then we'll report out and then look at our next steps. We always like to begin with remembering where we were. So this question is designed to connect us to our prior meeting, linking a trauma-informed perspective, building trust, and building effective engagement. So today, our reflection is thinking about your communities, where you live and who you are. How can ODOT build trust with your communities about tolling? We're going to take 2 minutes. I will time 2 minutes. Go ahead and in your notebook, in your journal, jot down, how can ODOT build trust with your communities about tolling? Thank you. "30 seconds left. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for spending time there. As always, we also begin with our agreements. These are our bumpers. They help us have these wonderful conversations, deep and rich conversations. So again, I ask that you listen, believe, and reflect, that we accept non-closure for the moment. Sometimes these conversations are going to be long and from meeting to meeting. And so we're going to do as much as we possibly can today, but sometimes we can't get through all of it. But in the process, speak your truth with compassion. Listen to understand, don't listen to respond. It is a very different type of listening, and that's what I invite us into doing, so we can value and celebrate each other's experiences. When we have open hearts and open minds, then we can explore lots of different possibilities. We can make space, take space, and then make space again, and be concise in our thinking. Be precise in our thinking and in our words. I invite us to bring our best thinking into the room. This is really important today as we take a critical look at the engagement process. We're going to attack the problem and not the person. And if there are disagreements and frustration and differences in opinion, we will be glad to acknowledge, explore, and address those. May I have thumbs up for the agreements? Thank you. Are you using it thumbs up, Anne? Yes, okay, very good. Thank you so much. All right, so committee members, you know that we'll have a deeper conversation about public comments and what the committee is hearing at our next meeting. We're going to forego that conversation today so we can focus on the engagement process workshop. We welcome your voice and participation in this process. So Anne, can you set the timer for 2 minutes? And also, can you see if anybody has raised their hand to give a public comment? And if you would like to participate in giving public comment and you're on a phone, use *9 in order to raise your hand. Are there any people that want to participate?
At the moment, I am not seeing anyone.
Okay. I'll sit here for a second. Okay, we'll go ahead and go on with our committee business. So on the docket, we will have a brief update from Brendan Finn, the director of the Urban Mobility Office. He's going to start us off this evening. Brendan, I would love for you to come in. Oops.
I'm here. Thank you, Christine. Boy, I really wish I did that grounding exercise before the meeting that I just came from. Excuse me, which was presenting this exact plan to the Joint Committee on Transportation for the Oregon State Legislature. Boy, I was nervous. Next time, and I'm usually nervous when I'm before Commissioner Smith too and the OTC, but I was really nervous. I got to remember to do that breathing exercise. Okay.
It's because I'm so scary.
Yeah, I know. Indeed. No, thanks for having me here, and I appreciate all the work that you put in. I know Lucinda's represents our office well in directing this program, but I just want to say on behalf of myself and the other members of our office, what you're doing is incredibly important work. And I'm here to tell you how we want to actually elevate it. And I know this is something that's going to be maybe a tad bit repetitive to Commissioner Smith and to Philip, who was at the R1 Act on Monday night, but I want to share it with you all, and give some space for some feedback and some questions, and as we move forward. And before I do, I just want to also how salient that question that you asked as far as building trust in communities. Since I took this job 8 months ago, the Urban Mobility Office is about to turn 1 year old. That's been, I'd say, the biggest challenge of my job has been trying to earn trust of community members based on the previous actions of this agency and government as a whole. I take that real seriously. It's actual personal kind of issue for me, probably a little bit too much. I will seek therapy. I probably own these things a little bit too much, but I've often I can't help but be the person that I am around these issues. So again, really appreciate your work, and I wanted to just inform you on some important things that are happening, some direction that we've gotten, what we've presented to the OTC, our regional leaders in the metropolitan region around transportation, and as I just left to come here, the Oregon State Legislature leadership on transportation. So as it relates to the toll program, which and how the important work that you're doing, we've been asked to take a real comprehensive look at how we address the issue of congestion and congestion management in the metropolitan region. So this map here is, a bit of a visual that, again, I know some folks have seen a few times before, that shows some potential limits and then expanding those limits to realize greater benefits for the community, maybe better benefits for the work that you're doing, and make it more impactful, but also how we feel we can best address the issue as it relates to mobility and congestion management in the region, which, as we've proposed, has been to have a comprehensive system-wide toll program that consists of starting, as Lucinda says, river to river. So we've been talking about this concept, what it means for potential revenue generation, what it means for management, what it means for projects that are associated with it. One of the things that that I know Commissioner Smith was involved in is making sure that we designate whatever revenue gets generated on each of these different corridors, that the revenue as a policy will stay on that corridor. One of the things we're going to be spending a lot of time on the next couple years as we move forward with this approach is defining exactly what that means as far as the corridors are concerned, as well as the revenue sources and how it's coming into the congestion relief fund. So this is, again, I don't want to go too much and take up too much of the committee's time. Want to answer questions. I know Philip gave me a good one the other night at the R1 Act about how this was going to be integrated. And I don't think I mentioned that I was going to be here tonight at that meeting, but I did talk about the important work that you're doing. This is, and I think, again, I hate to use this term to be, but, a bit of a marathon where we're just starting off on the first mile. The work that you've started is, we've obviously these plans aren't going to go into effect for a few years, so we have some time to figure this out. Obviously, you've already done some very impressive work as it relates to how we are going to address the issues around equity, inclusion, and just the disparities of the past of the system and how we can make a better one in the future. And it's crucial. I did have a legislator in this last meeting kind of take me to task on that. We're not listening to communities. We're not thinking about equity. And this commissioner was, or council member was, representative was from outside the Portland metropolitan region. So we need to think about those issues as well as it relates to people that live in different parts of our state. I know that's something Commissioner Smith thinks about a lot too. So I'm here as your kind of humble public servant, wanting to hear from you and thank you for your work. We're still committed to this approach and continuing down this pathway. So I guess, Lucinda, with that is if there's anything I should add or you want to add before we ask the committee to ask any questions.
Can you just
or Commissioner Smith, if you wanted to add anything.
Can you just show them the project limits, because right now they see the map, but can you just kind of scope it out for them.
Right. Oh, so what we would be looking at as it relates to going river to river and outside the project areas that we're
Yes,
currently looking at.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
as you see on this map, we have the expanded toll corridor limits and the potential corridor limits. What we're talking about here is what's been allotted in HB 2017, which gives ODOT the authority to create a toll program on I-5 and I-205. So some of these, so the kind of magenta color, the little lighter color here is to represent future exploration and tolling, because we're cognizant of the issues that might happen with diversion on those areas with that. So what we're talking about now is looking at a system-wide approach to tolling that is on the I-5 and I-205 corridors from where the Boone Bridge is in the Willamette River to the Columbia River on both the I-5 and I-205. And to do that, we would have to look at a different approach to NEPA. So that's something that I would rely on Lucinda to give more details on. So I guess I'm here to listen to feedback on that. I think that one of the things that influenced this process has been your work and the comments that we've gotten from the public around issues of diversion, around issues of equity as far as it relates to certain parts of the region having to endure tolls and not others. So we feel that this is responsive to those public comments and in the process that we've been going up to this point.
Any questions, committee? Michael? I'm going to stop sharing and see if we can have a conversation. And then Michael, and then Kari.
Hey, Brendan, thanks for sharing that info. I appreciate that, there's a comprehensive look being taken at the whole system. And you mentioned the revenues from this system, and it sounds like there's been some thinking done about where revenues might go. And so I'm curious, will we as an EMAC group have a chance to weigh in on that? Is that something that would potentially be in our charter? And then, what kind of community outreach is being considered for this revenue conversation as well?
Yeah, well, I think one of the first steps, great question, Michael. I think we're definitely going to want to have EMAC interaction and involvement in how that takes place. We don't currently understand or know exactly how much. So we've talked about this as a concept, more about how to think comprehensively about congestion management. But what we don't know is really the facts on what this is going to raise as far as revenues concerned. So we have some, I'll say they're a little bit more sophisticated than back of the napkin numbers on project costs and revenue. And so what would be kind of for the projects that you saw on that map, and then we don't have a great understanding on what would be derived so after that. So the commission has directed us to do further study on that and come back, which would be looped into this group, a traffic and revenue study, which I think Lucinda's going to look at. I'm going to say it's 6 to 8 months. We'll have a better understanding of what that is. Isn't that right, Lucinda?
We'll have a preliminary look. We don't really get an investment grade traffic and revenue study until about 6 months before the project goes live. So they're not able to ascertain right now how much money you would make or how much it would cost. So we're looking at that further down. We'll be doing some back of the napkin, as Brendan said, looks, so we can kind of get an idea of what revenue may be and then what our costs may be to put up
Thank you. Participants who have raised their hands, I'm very sorry we're unable to answer your questions today. Again, I ask you to go to the website to put your questions there. Kari and then Dr. Wu. Phil.
Thank you. And thanks, Brendan, for this information. Michael asked a couple of questions that I also was wondering about, but I guess overall, I'm curious when you say this is what you're looking at now, what that really means. Is that supplanting the work that this committee is doing? Is this a second phase? What is the impact to this work? And the reason I'm mostly asking that is because we're spending a lot of time here, but also because, I do hear a lot from the community about the diversion, and I hear a lot about concerns around the sequencing and the need to really, make sure that things are happening at the same time as opposed to one and then another. And I wasn't clear from your presentation whether this is a second phase or whether this is replacing what the current thinking has been to this point. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I'm going to lean a little bit on Lucinda to talk about how the work relates, but I think what you've been doing and the work that I've observed is going to continue on. It's just going to be at a bigger level. Some of the issues that we've heard around because you're to be the committee that's the work that you're doing would be to address the larger area and the larger programmatic approach. I think if we go for programmatic, we can't do two at once. I think that's kind of an issue that's a federal issue. So if we want to have this comprehensive approach with our partners at FHWA, we have to abandon the other one. So it is a shift to looking at the entire region and how the tolling. But I think it only, as I think, would amplify your work and make it much more impactful because it's going to be talking about how this is addressed to the entire region. Does that make sense, Gary? Did I answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then Phil, and then Eduardo, and then Bill, and then we need to move on.
Brendan, this is Phil. Thanks very much for making your comments here today. And I appreciate the fact that you're updating this committee and at the same time, gave some of this information to the R1 Act. And just for everyone else's information, when I was talking about integration at the R1 Act, what I was really referring to was the fact that there can tend to be a problem of siloed conversations. So in other words, the conversations and information that the ACTS, the Area Commissions on Transportation might be hearing could be different than some of the conversations that would occur in a group like EMAC. And that basically transparency is really, really important. So I think the fact that we're now sort of looking at a more system-wide approach to tolling has implications for what happens with the revenue that's generated. And I am quite certain that EMAC is going to have a particular perspective on how that revenue should be utilized in the framework of transportation equity. And so having an understanding of that bigger picture is really important because obviously that revenue is going to play into funding a whole lot of other projects, even beyond what we in EMAC might be interested in making sure happens around equity. So again, all I'm encouraging is a whole lot of transparency, and so that we understand the conversations that are happening at all levels and what those implications might be.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, and if I can just comment on that, yeah, I appreciate that. And I think one of the things we want to, we're so early on. I think the moment that we I think we were just at the commission last week to move forward on this. So we are at the first steps of this. So we certainly are at a point where this can be influenced. That a couple of the projects that are in our portfolio, we're going to try to reinvent the wheel on issues around equity. And I think we've learned our lesson. We need to be way out front. So we look forward to what you're going to be crafting around that, because we want you to guide us through that. So we're here at the beginning. And yeah, I realize those conversations are a bit different because the focuses, I think, for those communities at the R1 Act are different from what this group does. Because you're going to be more, I think, a little bit more broader based and thinking a bit more holistically when members of the R1 Act are representing communities that they're in. So.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you for that. Eduardo, you had your hand up before.
Yes, thank you. And just continuing on that theme of transparency, I mean, just looking at the map from the point of view of just a member of the public, thinking of how you've already selected current toll corridor and potential toll corridor. I don't know, I just want to make sure that this isn't a rubber stamp committee, kind of what Carrie mentioned earlier, of just the time being invested on it, and that we are being included, and that our advice is being taken. And early on, we also requested that ODOT can say, like, this is what you said, and here's the action that we took in response. So that was the only thing I would add.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. Bill?
Has it been established geographical limits on the revenue that comes in from the tolling projects?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bill. That's one of those ones where we've gotten direction from our commission to, as a policy, it should stay on the corridor, but we haven't defined what those are. So exactly to the point of your question, over the next 2 years, we want to work with the community, with EMAC. We want to bring that back to you. We're going to bring back what those look like. Metro has a designation of what they define as a corridor, but we're going to be working with them and our other partners, and I guess we'll make sure that we jot that down. But we know we want to come back to you as a committee and make sure we get your blessing on what those corridors are and what the analysis is. Currently confined a little bit. Oh, sorry. I was just going to add those. Those revenues are currently confined by some constitutional restrictions, Bill. But those, those still give us a lot of options.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brendan. It's wonderful to have you here today. I know we have lots more questions to ask, but we're going to keep moving forward and say thank you so much for keeping us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and move ahead with our committee business, which is our charter. Each committee member has reviewed the charter by email and sent in their support. And so, committee, are you ready to adopt the committee charter? Please raise your hand so Anne can see it. To say yes. Thumbs up to say yes.
Yes. I think I'm seeing everybody.
Yay, we adopted the charter.
Yep. James, am I seeing yours? I think so. Yep. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
As a facilitator, you've made my life. Thank you. All right. We've also, at the same time, been working on the equity framework. Revisions were made to define BIPOC, to demonstrate what a trauma-informed perspective looks like, to explain the term economic disadvantaged, and to replace underrepresented with excluded. Again, each committee member has reviewed the framework by email and has seen this wonderful representation of what trauma-informed perspective means. This was an incredible collaborative process between committee members and the project team. And I just want to say thank you for all of the input that we received. The project team is currently working on a one-pager to condense this all down and using plain language. So we heard that we need to create that one-pager with plain language, and that is in the process. So is the committee ready to adopt this living document? Again, please raise your hand so Ann and can say yes, yes, yes.
I'm seeing lots of thumbs up, Christine.
Oh my gosh, today's a great day. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, a heads up on the mandatory training requirement. Earlier this month, a mandatory training for committee members was offered. If you didn't take the course, Hannah will send out an email for another opportunity for the group training, or you can complete it by the end of the month using iLearn. So if you have any questions, please email Hannah. I also want to give us a reminder that ODOT is committed to tracking and following up on questions and requests you've made as a committee, and that the matrix is used to document those questions and requests and to provide responses. Again, this is a living document and it's updated with links and transmitted every time that we have a meeting. The supplemental materials that are requested and shared between committee members are also located here. So this is a wonderful repository. It keeps all of us on track and accountable. So I just wanted to remind the committee about this. So here we're getting into the meat of our work today. You have 4 speakers who played integral parts in the I-205 engagement process. Hannah Williams and Ann Presentine are part of the project team. Ping Ka and Hannah Grisevich are community engagement liaisons. Please take notes throughout their presentations. There's going to be a very brief Q&A at the end, and I'm going to hand this off to Hannah.
Thank you, Christine. I am on the phone. I apologize. I'm having internet issues, so I apologize. I'm not on video and can't see everyone's smiling face. So I'm here tonight with Ann Presentine, Ann Pinka, and Hannah Grishkovich. And yeah, we're going to talk about our I-205 toll project engagement, what we did, what we heard, and really get the conversation started with you about how can we do better, what improvements can we make, and how do we measure our engagement? So can I get the next slide, please, the I-205 toll project engagement plan?
It is
I'm flying blind here. Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for our I-205 toll project engagement, we were really trying to reach several audiences. You know, we were looking to reach commuters, people along I-205 that used it, residents, agency partners, elected officials, businesses, and communities that historically or currently have been excluded or underserved by transportation projects. And we were trying to provide information about our toll projects and also about modern tolling. How does that work? And in addition to putting information out there and providing education, we're also really looking for information back for people's comments and input at the start of our environmental review on our draft goals and objectives, our draft purpose and needs, and our draft alternatives. Next slide, please.
Yep.
So how are a few ways that we engaged people? So the primary tools that we use is, we had an online open house and a survey. We did advertising. We used social media. There were news releases. We did presentations and briefings, and we partnered with community engagement liaisons. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Next slide, please.
Yep.
So on the left, is a map of where we had presentations and the briefings. And then on the right is a heat map. And this shows you by people's zip codes where we got responses to the surveys. And the darker the color is the bigger number of survey responses. So you can see that, you know, it's pretty dark in kind of around the project area and Clackamas County. Project area is that yellow circle. So what does this mean? We had about 4,000 surveys, and we had 600 other comment submittals that came in. And so this came in ways other than the survey. So this could have been an email or a comment at a meeting or a briefing or a voicemail or comments from our webinars. Out of our 4,000 surveys, more than half of the response came from Clackamas County, so those dark colors on the heat map there, and 16% of responses came from people of color, and we can compare that to around 12% in Clackamas County, and the number is around 19% region-wide. Of our survey responses, we think it's pretty likely that we're underrepresented by people that identify as Hispanic or Latin American, and we're comparing that to numbers in the region. Of our survey responses, 7% of our surveys were completed in Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, or Chinese, and that's compared to about 8% in the region of folks are not able to easily or comfortably communicate in English, and in Clackamas County, the number is around 4%. Next slide, please.
Yep.
So how many people did we reach? Up on the screen here is a snapshot of some numbers, and this is in the report and in your materials, and we can dive in deeper if you'd like to, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna highlight a few things here. So we had around 9,600 people that clicked through our online open house in either English or in Spanish. And we had more than 38,000 views of a boosted Facebook post. And that post had a video on it, so that kind of tells us that, you know, a video is an effective tool for drawing attention. Can I get the next slide, please?
Yeah.
So we spent a little bit more time on three areas. We were really looking for help to expand our reach in different communities. So we put together a toolkit for community-based organizations to help us with our notifications, getting information out about the projects and how tools would work, but also asking people to comment during this comment period and tell us what they thought about, again, those draft alternatives, goals and objectives, and purpose and need. We also really utilized social media and ads. And we did some webinars. We had 3 webinars. These were live. We tried some different things to make them engaging. They were also live on YouTube, Zoom, and we did them at different times of the day to try to get different audiences. We had the full project team there, so anyone who really wanted to, you know, dig into any type of question, we were there. We didn't leave till all the questions were answered, and it was kind of our way of, you know, just trying to be available for people in a time where we just couldn't meet you in person this time. We also had some multilingual engagement. You can see that there was a lot of translation into 5 different languages. And you can also see that we kind of, we did a lot for Spanish engagement. And I just kind of want to call out that we tried to kind of beef up our Spanish engagement we added another community engagement liaison, Spanish-speaking community engagement liaison, and then increased our advertising budget in Spanish. We also tried a radio ad. And this was done halfway through the comment period because we really saw with our survey responses that responses from Spanish-speaking communities and people that identify as Hispanic or Latin American, we were underrepresented. So we definitely, we tried some things, but we definitely have some areas where we can improve. And now to talk more about our multilingual engagement and, what was done, what was heard, I'd love to introduce you to Pinka and Hannah Grishevich so they can talk more about the work that they led.
Do we have Ping?
Ping.
Okay, I just unmute, sorry.
Okay.
Hi.
Thank you.
I was trying to figure out why can't I talk? Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Great to see everyone here. And so since we have limited time, I'm just gonna go right to the point. So the engagement process that we dealt with is pretty much focusing on communities that we have done a lot of engagement work in the past. Although we know we are familiar with our engagement process, there are certain things that we still have to remember because, old habit, they don't die easily. So we have to think that we're dealing with community colors that one group is actually intelligent and understand English really well. And then we have another group that might not have the English proficiency, but they might be engineer from their own country. They might be doctor from their own country, but they might not have the English proficiency here. So our engagement process, we have to kind of cater our process to really make sure that it works. And so liaison's job is very crucial because they have to be really sensitive to understand each person's need. So with this COVID-19, we have liaison actually making personal phone calls. And you know how that is. When you make personal phone calls, you don't just say, hey, how are you? And then can you do the survey? That doesn't work. So a lot of time you have to sort of warm things up a little bit, talk about, hey, how's your kid? How's your wife? How's your mom? So it kind of take a little bit longer time. And it's kind of different from the actual face-to-face engagement we have done in the past. Even though it's taking me longer, but we are still managed to get people to engage. So next, I want to actually introduce you to Hannah Grishevich, our Slavic liaison, who have done a lot of projects, and she's one of the very experienced liaison. So Hannah, take it away.
Hello, good evening. I was working predominantly with Russian and Ukrainian speaking community, and I would say 70 to 80% of Slavic people in the Metroplex, they do live in Clackamas County and they drive on 205. So this was a very easy connection to make and distribute, I would say first distribute information and educational materials to my community through various means, through the radio, on Facebook, email, and all of that. I think that my work was twofold, collecting the survey and collecting the survey results. But I think it was more beneficial to start the conversation. Historically, there is a skepticism and mistrust towards the government in our community and in other immigrant communities. So people often receive surveys with a pushback saying, my voice actually won't matter. They will still do what they want to do. So sometimes it's really difficult to push the survey regardless of the language. It's still a difficult survey of several pages and say, well, this will really help. And here's the question, whom will it help? Will it help the community? Will it help the committee? Will it help the project managers to understand and then understand what? So I thought the engagement was most active when people were given an opportunity to give open-ended responses. If they got tired, even with translation and even with the translation geared towards 8th grade education language level, people would get tired. And if they do not understand the question about equity or transparency or goals, purposes, objectives. This is not on their radar. Their values and issues are different today. It's about survival and adjusting. They will just pick neutral. So even though I collected the results, how informative those results were, unless there is an open-ended box in the survey, and I always encourage them to give their input in that box specifically. When I led discussions on Facebook, I was glad that I could electronically copy and paste links of leading them towards the project, looking at the pictures, actually seeing like some of the images that we see that we see on the slideshow. But also, I felt like I received more information and education and input from the discussions that would have up to 200 comments sometimes, and people who moved from state to state, and they were discussing the different options of the tolls and different costs and the different times, and that was very engaging. So I think in the end, for immigrants, even if they are skeptical whether their voice matters, I think it's important to not to educate like they're, you know, lesser individuals, but to be transparent and open and brave and say, this is something that will take place because this is necessary, this is needed. And I think that people are resilient and they are okay to accept that news, even if they personally do not find it beneficial. Like to be open that the park will be built, or to be open that the Columbia River levees will be restructured, whether we want it or not, because this is for the greater good, for the greater number of people who will come after us in 10 and 20 years. So I felt pretty honest and strong, being honest and saying, you know, don't you think that something needs to be done? And that led to very good conversations.
Anna, thank you so much for that. It is so valuable to hear about your perspective, your process, your engagement, what you've learned. And we just so appreciate having you here today. Thank you so much, Ping. Thank you so much, Hannah. Hannah, I'm going to ask you to come back in and talk about what did the liaisons hear from their communities? If you can unmute, yes, very good. Thank you. We can't hear you though.
I think it's me, right?
No, Hannah.
Okay.
Williams.
Oh.
Hannah Williams, do you want to summarize? She thinks she may be having some internet trouble.
And do you want to do that?
Sure, unless Hannah Grishkovich, were you planning on doing this slide?
Sure. I wasn't, but I can read.
Okay, great. And then and then you can hand it back to me.
Thank you. A few communities are very aware of the project already. Concerns about personal financial impacts of the tolls were raised. Lots of projects asking for input right now, and there was a lot of complaints about the survey fatigue, but a lot of desire to provide input. Some people felt that open house survey questions were too long and complex, and people had questions about tolling an existing road, and many had experiences with tolls on new roads. People wanted more specifics about how the toll worked and what it would cost.
Thank you.
And I'm done.
Thank you so much. Any questions for the community liaisons? I'm gonna give us like just a minute or two. I wish I had more.
I think Bill has a question.
Yes, Bill.
I think I found my answer, but in the engagement summary, was the Slavic population split out from the white Caucasians populations?
I believe so.
It was split out.
All right, cool. Thank you.
And that information can be found deep into the report. Happy to point you toward it.
Yeah, it seems like it starts around page 80.
Yes.
Light bedtime reading. Hannah and Ping, again, thank you so much for your perspective and for being here today. We truly appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank
Our
you.
pleasure. Thanks.
All right, I am going to share my slides again. I'm going to ask Anne to step in.
Okay. So Anne Presentine, and I am here today in my role of working with the project team and putting together all of the public engagement in the survey, and then we reported on it. And I'm going to go as quickly as I can here, so apologies for that. I want to just summarize what we heard from the 4,600 comments that we received. I'm going to focus on what we heard from our excluded and underserved populations, but I also want to emphasize that pretty much we heard the same thing across demographic groups. Some of the key things are up there on the slide for you. People were concerned about the personal financial impacts about tolls and how it would or could affect them. Many commenters said there was a need for toll-free driving route and better transit, and people had other ideas as well, such as toll discounts. Many commenters questioned the need for the project, and they had many questions in general, and two of the big ones were, how much is the toll going to be, and what are you going to do with the money? Many respondents talk about the traffic and personal effects from COVID-19. Clackamas County residents specifically were very concerned about diversion and perceived unfairness with being the first toll project in the region. And finally, commenters expressed lots of feelings of dissatisfaction, distrust, and opposition, and you heard that from Hannah and Ping. Folks who identify as Black, Native American, or Alaska Native expressed opposition to the toll proposal in greater numbers as a percentage compared to all of the survey respondents. And for many people, the lack of clear information about the need for the toll, how a toll system could benefit them, and the use of toll revenue led to negative sentiment. Next slide, please. So for our discussion in the breakout groups, we wanted to give you the results of our self-assessment, which is also in a memo that was included in your meeting materials. And our goal here is to look toward the future. We want to identify what we learned in order to move forward effectively and address step 2 of the equity framework that you just adopted. Yay! All related to process equity. So our initial findings include that social media is highly effective for reaching communities, but didn't necessarily lead to survey responses. It was hard to reach people during COVID. As you can imagine, we're all here in this space. And so while we got a lot of comments received, there just was little opportunity for dialogue, except for with the liaisons. They were able to connect with people and have conversation. And we also had good conversations when we did briefings with our agency partners. We had good geographic reach. We used all the outreach methods that we used, and we had greater levels of engagement near to the project. The role of the liaisons could potentially be expanded. The liaisons, the engagement liaisons had a somewhat limited scope, but were quite effective. And so we think there might be an opportunity to expand their role. And finally, we need to rethink how we inform and engage people about the project. The online open house and other on-demand materials, such as a fact sheet, were not really well used. A lot of people just completed the survey without reviewing other information, and then they said they didn't have enough information. So I think that's us. It's on us to make sure they know the information is available. Next slide. And this is my last slide before we start to break. So we did a little bit of a self-assessment. This table in an expanded form is in the memo. So just a few things. You can see that on the left, there is an indicator of success that we included in our engagement plan. And then we identified, did we meet that? And overall, it's kind of mixed. We were able to achieve our success metric related to the number of comments received and information being delivered through trusted sources, and information being translated in accessible formats. We did pretty well there. We had mixed results in having our survey respondents be proportional to the demographics of the region. As we talked about, we believe that Hispanic and people who speak Spanish and people who are from Latin America, those communities are underrepresented. And then also that comments showed understanding of the project. That was kind of mixed. In some cases, we didn't meet our metric. We had a metric of having 75% of participants satisfied with the project information and with their opportunity to be heard. And then also, we wanted people to get to the online open house and not bounce out or, to stay on the site. And our bounce rate, which is kind of a technical term, was not achieved. So that was pretty quick. I was trying to get back on time. But if anyone has any clarifying questions before we start our process of moving into our breakout groups, I'm happy to attempt to answer them.
I see Bill's hand is raised.
Hi, Bill.
Sorry, I'm full of questions tonight. Were the community liaisons, were they assigned by geographical area or is it by demographics?
It's by demographic.
Okay, thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? All right, Christine, back to you.
Okay, so we are going to go into our small group discussions. After our break, and we're going to take a 5-minute break, committee members will split into 3 breakout groups. Committee members will join their assigned group via an individual link you received from Brett earlier today. Webinar attendees are welcome to join any breakout group to observe the discussions. Breakout groups will not be available via YouTube live stream, but they will be recorded and they will be placed on the website. We will come back as a whole group to this link at 5:25. So we'll use this main link again. So we're ready. Here are the breakout groups. Everyone should know their breakout groups. We're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break. And so come back at 4:40 into your own breakout group. We're on time. Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Slightly amazed that we are on time. Okay, well, I'm going to hop off and get on my other site.
Thank you, Ann. Welcome back.
Made it.
Yeah. We did it.
We did it.
So do you think this process was easier than doing in other Zoom meetings I've been in? You know, a sort of a single person sort of moves everyone to a breakout room and then moves them back, as opposed to having these sort of separate links.
Well, we would love to do that, but you can't record them.
Oh, got it. Okay.
When you do breakout rooms, you can't record everything. And so since we're a public meeting, we need to be able to make sure all those recordings happen. So
okay.
Yeah, this is the workaround.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Christine, you have access to, you see that our thing is filled out.
I know. I'm impressed. I'm going to give facilitators 3 minutes per question.
Okay.
Yeah. So if your group wants to chime in, that's good too.
We had some good discussion.
Great.
Well, it just reflects the brilliance of the group.
And the whole committee.
And the whole committee.
Welcome back, Jermaine, John, Dwight. Hi, Park. Hi, Eduardo. Hi, Fabian.
Christine?
Mm-hmm.
It's Lucinda. I'm on by phone.
Oh, thank you.
Sounds like the third breakout group is running just a bit long, but they should join us in just a moment.
Great. Thank you, Brett.
Hey, while we're sitting here, I got a question for the group. What was your favorite snack as a kid, like after school snack? Mine was crackers and peanut butter.
Hostess Twinkies.
Ooh.
Peanut butter and honey sandwich.
I love those still.
I guess mine was Oreo cookie. I even learned the Oreo cookie commercial.
The power of advertising.
It's a great question, James. Thank you for that.
So Christine, what was your favorite snack?
Yeah, it was Ritz crackers and peanut butter.
Well,
that was the snack of choice when we got home. Ran home, and so we could watch Dark Shadows. Dun, dun, dun.
You're telling our era.
Never mind. I'll take that back.
Too late.
Yeah.
Well, the Twinkies were close for me, but I really needed the chocolate in the Hostess cupcake.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and the squiggle.
Yep, the ho-hos and the ding-dongs too.
There was this other one. I think there was like a snowball that had
coconut?
Sort of a the coconut thing. I would peel off the coconut and save it for last.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
It would still be good today. You know that. No.
Yeah, of course. Actually, my partner bought me, it was maybe 2 years ago, a Twinkie maker. So you can actually make your own Hostess Twinkies.
I didn't know there
at
was
home.
such a thing.
There is such a thing.
Wow.
What we hadn't quite figured out was how you actually get the cream inside the Twinkie.
Does it work?
Do you use it like injection? Like you would a turkey
Yep.
or something? Okay.
Yeah, something
Well,
like
it
that.
had the little holes on
But
the
that's kinda
bottom
hard
of
to
the
do.
regular one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like a pastry bag thing. That might work. Okay. Let us know when you try that.
This- Well, I did try it once, and the problem is that the Twinkie came out kind of more solid, so you couldn't inject anything into it.
Oh, instead of
But
spanky.
anyway,
Yeah, you
details,
know those
details.
Yep, there we go.
Oh my goodness.
Let's host a demonstration at the next meeting.
I think so. I know so. All right. I'm sure Brett is working on bringing our fellow people back.
One
I
group.
heard 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Very good. Sharon, I see you have your tree up. Nice.
Yes, we just stayed at home over Thanksgiving. We didn't go visit family or anything, and so we just thought, well, let's put the tree up early. So that's what we did. I'm not sure what we're going to do over the Christmas holiday because we're not going anywhere again, and so I think there's going to be a lot of cookies baked and
so.
dropped off at neighbors.
Well, live Christmas tree sales are up over 30%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw this thing
Wow.
on the TV the other day about it. I think people just like, hey, I
Wow.
want my house to smell good. And look, this year I actually get to enjoy it 24/7.
Exactly. Yeah, we bought new lights, and so these lights change color. So today it's in the multicolor, and then tomorrow we're going to switch it to white. And so, you know, all we do is hang out at home and work and walk the dog. So,
And eat cookies.
and eat cookies. Yes.
The prices of Christmas trees were up substantially too. We complimented ourselves. We still haven't spent $100 on a Christmas tree. $99.95.
I remember when I was a kid, my dad and I would drive up in this little Honda Civic up to Mount Hood, and you get a tag, and it was $2. And then you'd walk up into the woods and you'd cut down whatever tree you wanted and haul it out, put it on your car and take it home.
Wow.
And so $2 versus $100, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm not that old, am I?
You can still get a tag and cut your own tree over in Central Oregon. So a lot of people do that. You see
Oh.
people coming down from the highway with the trees on top.
Welcome in, everyone.
I think it might be more than $2 though.
I'm sure it is.
I think we have one more group coming in.
While we're waiting, I'll just share. That was fantastic. I really like these breakout groups. I thought it was really valuable being able to talk to each other and kind of dig in.
I think we have representatives from all 3 groups. We just may have lost a couple as we
Yeah.
have people coming back.
Chris Leppy and Chelsea.
Oh, there's
And Izzy, I believe, had to go to a meeting
Oh, okay.
from our group.
Is Chelsea here? And Chris.
Right, not that
They're
I.
coming in as panelists right now.
Okay.
So can I have a photo? May I please have everybody's cameras on so I can just take one wonderful picture of all of us smiling, sparkling faces. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Here, yay. Thanks, John. One more time. Thank you. Last time. Big smiles. Thanks. All right. Fabulous. Okay. So now on to the work at hand. I am going to share, and I'm going to give our facilitators about 2 minutes per question. You all went through 3 different questions, and I would love for our facilitators to be able to summarize what everyone worked on. And so, Anne, you're in group 1. And do we have the right objectives? And if the answer is no, what did we miss? And this is based on the I-205 Toll Project Engagement Plan.
So on this question, 2 things resonated. One was that we really needed to prioritize more the why of the project. And it's sort of embedded in there, but they felt like that was most important to really make sure as an objective that that's what we were trying to do, that people understood it. The other thing is that they looked at all of these objectives and said we just might have had too much, that to really focus on what we needed to do, and just so things wouldn't be so, there just wouldn't be so much content because there was a lot of content. So those were 2 things that I heard from that particular question.
Wonderful.
It was a sort of a 3-part question. Do you want me to talk about the other parts?
Yes, please.
Okay, so then on the audiences, a couple of things. One is just having some clarity, making sure that bi-state commuters are particularly called out, and that we're specifically including the activist community, because they weren't really called out there. I mean, it just wasn't clear. So making sure that they were specifically called out. And this question also had if the tools were the right tools. And a few other things were suggested, which was making sure that we're really using video, punchy short videos, TikTok was mentioned, and then mailers in this COVID environment would be tools that could be used. So those are some of the things that I heard.
Wonderful. And then the third part of the first question, did we use the right tools to reach the audiences that were identified? And if not, then what did we miss?
Oh, that was the video.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Video and mailers were 2 that were identified as being something that's would be really good to use, especially right now in a COVID environment.
Beautiful. Good. Okay. Thank you for that. Anybody from group 1 that wants to chime in around the first question? Well,
I would just like to add that I did mention the word of mouth posting some information on public transit so that people can communicate it to their coworkers or family members. I just think that's so important beyond the video and other forms of engagement.
excellent. Thank you, Eduardo. Appreciate that. All right. I would like to go to group 2. That's with Chris Leppy. For question 1, would you like to walk us through what you talked about? For the first one, do we have the right objectives?
Definitely a lot of good input as part of this question. As you can see further down in the notes here, we had some really good discussion around transparency and making sure that we're communicating to the populations, the diverse populations, in sort of a language that they can best understand. There's a lot of talk about the need for qualitative, just generally speaking across the board as it relates to this conversation, qualitative, not just quantitative metrics, but things like increasing awareness, as you can see there, on how money will be spent and the constraints about how it can be spent as part of the project, clarifying how we can address the need for better transportation options as part of the project to address impacts. There was discussion around geographic, not just demographic sort of focus, emphasis, and reporting out. Like I said, there, as you can see there in a bullet, objectives around transparency, making sure that we're showing that we're clearly communicating with folks. And then also, as it relates to the earlier part of the conversation that we had earlier in this meeting, EMAC meeting, about how this project is connected to the larger sort of game plan, if you will, including around tolling outside of the scope of this particular project. There was also a comment about making sure that the goals are SMARTY, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable. So those are just some key components. And also, oh yeah, one other thing, because we have in our framework now, we've got this emphasis on addressing sort of the rights of the past, and a trauma-informed perspective is the term I was looking for. How do we weave that in moving forward?
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay. Did we have the right voices? If the answer is no, what did we miss?
Yeah, we only had a couple minutes to chime in on this here, but small businesses across the corridor was one, transportation-related businesses that are auto-dependent, transit-dependent populations, youth voices, and looking at populations across age, and then making sure that we're differentiating between different agencies and decision makers.
Very good. And then, did we use the right tools to reach the audiences?
And this one we had even less time for, but some of the ideas that were conveyed was text messaging, such as slick text. There was a point over the arc of the conversation that we had about the community engagement liaisons and how great the work and apparently fruitful it has been. And so really making sure that we continue to leverage what has worked in the past, but then also seeing, hey, well, maybe we should bump things up a bit on that front, allocate more expenditures for those types of strategies.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Great. Chelsea, I'm going to come to group 3. Sorry for all of the scrolling. I'm sure people are a little nauseous here. Group 3.
Yeah, we had a great discussion. Sort of on that first question around objectives, we talked quite a bit actually about vision. So wanting to increase awareness about the long-term vision for tolling and making sure that's one of the objectives there. We also touched on the benefits of tolling and seeing that as important, but also wanting to touch on the things that might not be benefits necessarily, and making sure that would really help to combat some disinformation that would be spreading from that. And then this was sort of a general theme, but just needing to increase awareness about things more specifically. So not necessarily to put all of this detail directly into the objectives, but wanting to be more specific in the survey around what the benefits of tolls are and the modern toll system and the specifics of how much tolls cost and some of those things that Anne touched on that we heard a lot of questions from in the survey itself.
Very good. And then did we identify the right voices?
Yeah, so we talked around this piece a little bit too. Generally, this seemed like the right list, but there were a few more that our group wanted to add. Workforce development groups was a group that came up, and community colleges and how those interact there. And also thinking about groups that assist people living with a disability. So like rideshare services, either private ones or public ones, trying to make that connection there. And then we also talked quite a bit about connecting more closely with the community itself through community partners. So not necessarily just through community organizations, but like actually talking directly with folks. And then down to the third piece around tactics. So we talked quite a bit about how COVID is a really difficult time to reach folks, and wanting to have that in-person engagement and how that was missing a little bit, and wanting to go back to the community, like as we will in the future, with some more of those in-person tactics, but noting that we'll want to continue with a lot of this online stuff, even when we can be in person, to reach specific folks. And I should have said in our previous one, because it came up later in the conversation, we also talked about as an audience, like untech savvy folks, whatever that looks like, but making sure that we're thinking about how to reach them.
Thank you, Chelsea. All right, we're going to go back to group 1. Question 2, did we have the right indicators to measure success? If not, how do we measure engagement and ensure we have equitable processes that lead to equitable outcomes? Anne.
Hi again. We talked about looking to see, making sure what I'm saying is not disconnected from what the notes are that we have. We spent some time talking about the satisfaction levels, and the group talked about how it was more important to measure whether people really understood the information, because they may be satisfied, but they may not understand, and understanding is more important than satisfaction. Also, potentially a metric of having the number of comments be proportional to the population, because this is a big effort and we want to make sure that we're hearing from a lot of people. And then another interesting one that came up in terms of a metric is asking folks, did this encourage you to talk about this issue in your community? Is something, have we explained it in such a way that it prompted you to understand that it was important to talk with others? So like doing that, extending the engagement. So those were 3 that came up in ours. The other one was, they definitely, the media coverage was a good one that needed clarification, but it was seen as a good one to include. So there's just a few things that we talked about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Chris, you're up for question 2.
Hey. So one of the first points you see there out of the gate was the sort of the challenge, noting the challenge of tracking level of satisfaction as it relates to the engagement for something around something that people aren't happy about, and how do you kind of address that, mitigate for that in the way that you ask the questions, for example. There was also a point about trust and how do you measure trust. So for example, asking questions that can show the level at which people feel that there's transparency and trust in the process, and that people's input is being used in a meaningful way. We also had, let's see here, one big question is how will the revenues be used? And so something for us to think about moving forward is how do we turn that into an indicator, whether it be on the outcome front or the community engagement front, level of understanding of how the revenues can be used or will be used. I think one really good point was that depending on what country or where you're from, what geography you're from, you might have a different understanding of tolls and a different perception of tolls in the way that it's implemented in your home kind of town or places that you visited. Mexico, for example, has quite a bit of tolls, and those tolls are typically seen, at least perceived, if not are, for higher income commuters. And so how would somebody from that geography look at this particular proposal? So making sure that the sort of the communication and translation happens with folks from those communities to ensure it resonates and hits home, and that people can understand and distinguish the difference there. So, one way of, yeah.
It sounds like a rich conversation.
Yeah, sorry. Is that, and so anyway, yes, exactly. Lots of good conversation. Again, we talked about the geographic distribution of responses. And you could see some of the other points there, but lots of good input.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
For sure.
We'll see.
Great. So first of all, our group noted this question is a huge question and that requires a lot of thinking and deep discussion. But at a high level, we touched on quite a few of these. The satisfaction piece that the other two groups talked about was also a piece that came up for us. Had some specific suggestions around, like, we did the follow-up survey, but consider, like, as people are leaving, giving them like a smiley face, frowny face thing to indicate either a question around, like, how did you feel about these questions, or like, how did you feel about how you were engaged here, just to get that immediate sense, and then use that later follow-up survey to dig in a bit more for folks that will respond to a longer question. And making sure that we're really clear in all of our surveys how many questions there are and how long it will take. We also talked quite a bit about the at least 3 ethnic media outlets piece, and noting that that should be a much higher number, and we should consider how to modify our content to make it more engaging, and something that those ethnic media outlets and all media outlets would pick up. In the interest of time, I will leave it there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Chelsea. All right, Anne, we're going to go back to you for question 3.
Question 3, we had a great conversation, and it sounds like it's continuing things that had already been done, and then doing a little bit more. So one of our members had been able to communicate via Facebook Live. So that's something that could be done. Members could help with webinars in different languages, or go to radio stations, getting to Chelsea's comment about ethnic media outlets, and provide information in alternative languages. And then another one was Oregon Public Broadcasting has a show called Think Out Loud, and EMAC members could go on there and participate. So those were some of the ones that got suggested in our group.
Thank you. Very rich, very exciting. Chris, question. Didn't get to.
You'll be happy to know we didn't talk about it, so we can move on to the next person.
Okay, Chelsea.
Sure, we were able to spend.
We told folks from our group to circle back with us with input if they have any thoughts, which
Great.
Hopefully they will.
That's great.
Great. We did have a couple of minutes to talk about this in group 3. Talked about supporting in-person events after COVID when that's possible, specifically co-hosting events or getting out into community events that folks are already attending and sharing information there. Also helping other organizations advertise on their websites about the work that we're doing. And then there was a suggestion around administrative support. So we provided materials to share, and lots of EMAC members shared those materials, but sort of help to coordinate the follow-up if there are any questions or requests on additional formats or specifics, was a key piece of our conversation.
Thank you. Such rich conversation. These documents will be made available. And so we're capturing this wonderful input and really appreciate the time that you've spent in your committee, groups. And what's really amazing is that we're kind of like really on time. we've done this wonderful gallery walk with all of you in this deep engagement, and so grateful for that. And here we are at our next steps. And so the project team will take this input and include it and update the public involvement plan. The project team will draft a process equity evaluation criteria based on your breakout group discussion of indicators of success. Lots of big words, but really taking your input and beginning to ask you to help us create what those indicators of success look like. So the ask is for committee volunteers to work with the project team to draft and refine process equity evaluation criteria. The process work that we just did, that we just looked for and examined. At the February meeting, we'll begin to develop criteria for outcome equity. What do we want to see on the other side, the benefits that could be possibly experienced by historically minoritized communities. And we will do an ask for committee volunteers to work with the project team to identify ways to engage with community members who experience a disability. I don't want this to be lost because this is a committee request. And so we invite you to step in and help with the engagement of people who do experience a disability. So it is 5:58. I am going to stop sharing. I am just so impressed with all of the work that everyone has done today, and I am so grateful. Any appreciations you would like to bring forward before we go on our way to the holidays? Any appreciations that any committee member would like to bring forward? Yes, Sharon.
I just wanted to thank everybody on the committee for spending the time and the effort and really digging into this, because the OTC really wants to hear from communities, and your help is essential in getting to that result. So I just want to let you know how much we appreciate it.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Have a great holiday season. We will see you in February. Again, deeply appreciative of everyone's time. Bye.
Thank you.